Hello there, everybody. Welcome to day 26 of 30 Days of Yoga. Today's practice is actually going to be an informative session on how to live yoga in life. Now, I have a stickler that I often speak about, which is something that I like to teach new people and remind people who are seasoned yogis. We do not do yoga. We do the dishes, we do the laundry, we do the housework. We don't do yoga, we embody and live yoga. Now, when we think of yoga, many people think, oh, it's an exercise, it's flexibility, it's stretching, it's a little mindfulness. That's part of it. And so I want you to just hang in there with me and listen to the 8 principles of yoga, what it is, and then your practice today will be taking one of those principles and applying them to your life today. That's how we're going to practice today. So I want you to think of a bicycle wheel. The bicycle wheel has 8 spokes. Each of those spokes is one principle of the philosophy of yoga. Now, the first principle is referred to as the yamas, Yamas, yamas. How do we relate to the world? This is kindness, honesty, not taking what isn't ours, using our energy wisely, letting go of attachment. How do we relate to the world? Yoga isn't just about how we treat our bodies, but really how do we treat the world around us? So that's principle number one that I think is incredibly important when we think about creating a better place of humanity for all beings. How do we show up? How do we treat the world? The niyamas is how do we relate to ourselves? Do we have cleanliness and clarity? Are we content, or are we always just seeking and grasping? Do we have discipline, commitment, self-reflection? Are we connected to something greater than ourselves? That's the niyamas. We have yamas, how we relate to the world. Niyamas, how do we relate to ourselves? Now we come into asana. That's what we've been doing for 25 days, the physical practice on a yoga mat or in a chair. Now, think in terms of poses, movement, stability, flexibility, awareness. That is asana. That's just one spoke on the bicycle wheel of yoga, just one tiny part of it. The next spoke is pranayama. Prana is energy, breath. Pranayama is learning to work with the breath, which is why we inhale to reach, exhale to surrender, having breath awareness, intentional breathing, calming, energizing the nervous system by utilizing the breath, practicing breath work, pranayama. Pratyahara is the 5th spoke on the wheel, and that is turning inward. We touched on this a couple days ago. It is eliminating distractions. Think of cactus pose. I'm not going to have the influence of opinions, gossip, negativity influence me, but I'm going to turn inward and I'm going to seek within myself, bringing awareness inward, noticing the senses without chasing every sensation or only wanting pleasurable sensation, but just noticing and creating a space that pushes outside the outside distractions and really comes home or comes inward. The next one is Dharana, which is concentration, focus, attention, staying present. We use the postures, the asana, a lot of times to think about where is my knee in warrior two? Where are my arms? Are my shoulders creeping into my ears? Are my eyes looking at my hand on the left side? Is my gaze soft when I'm in tree pose? Am I present? Am I concentrating on my standing leg being my supporting leg? Is there buoyancy in my heart? That is dharana, concentration, kind of watching where the mind goes to. And so that happens in asana, right? When we start to be critical of ourselves, which goes to the niyamas of how do we relate to ourselves. So everything that we do on a yoga mat is connecting all 8 of the principles. But really, for today's practice, I want you to think about these things and then apply them to life outside of a yoga practice. Dhyana is meditation, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 minute of awareness, of presence, of observing without analyzing. This could be looking at a candle, it could be looking at a flower, it could be just simply being with yourself. It is learning to be rather than to do. It could be prayer, it could be silence, it could be music, it could be many, many things. which is so important to create that space within ourselves. And then the last spoke of the wheel is samadhi, which a lot of people interpret as enlightenment. I interpret it as simply connection, finding a deep peace within myself, finding unity within me and life, me and other beings, me and humanity, finding a connection to myself, to others. And then how do we apply all of these into our life outside of asana or posture? That's your practice today. So let's just go through them really quick. Yamas, how I treat other people. Are you kind? Are you compassionate? Niyamas, how do I treat myself? Am I critical? Am I negative? Am I harming? Am I not being orderly in my thoughts and in my body? Am I consuming things that aren't good for me? Asana, how do I move? Pranayama, how do I breathe? Pratyahara, how do I turn inward? How do I look within? Dharana, how do I focus? Pay attention. And Dhyana, how do I become absolutely present in the moment? And then samadhi is how do I experience connection in the world? So your 8 limbs, they don't go sequential order. They aren't like, I'm going to do yamas and then be done with that. I'm going to do niyamas and be done with that. These are 8 aspects of a totality practice, a whole practice. So you can practice the yamas while gardening, pranayama while sitting in traffic, dharana while washing dishes, and meditation while you're drinking your morning coffee. That is when yoga becomes your life. So you don't do yoga. That's 20 minutes of flexibility where you're doing posture work. But the rest of your days, awake hours, you are embodying these principles. How do I show up for myself? How do I show up for others? Am I paying attention to what I'm doing while I'm doing it? Am I connecting with the people around me? Am I connecting to myself? Am I connecting to spirit? Am I being intentional with my breath and not just on a hamster wheel of life? So I want you to think about that. That is your practice today, is to embody one of the limbs into your life today. Now, I'm going to link below in the description of this video a couple of different things, a video about the yamas, a video about the niyamas. I'm going to also link an article that I wrote about the 8 limbs of yoga. I like to think of the bicycle wheel, but it's commonly referred to as the 8 limbs. And if you have questions, reach out to me. If you need a deeper dive into one of those because you want to understand the principle behind it, just reach out to me. But there's a lot of information, simplest terms. These are the principles in which we live our life. So we don't do yoga, we do the dishes. We practice yoga, we live yoga, we do laundry. That's what I got for you today, day 26. Tomorrow, we will be back on the mat or in a chair to finish up this final week. But I wanted to give you a framework, especially beginners who may have signed up for this 30 days of yoga thinking, I'm going to increase flexibility, I'm going to get stronger, I'm going to learn how to stand on one leg, I'm going to get a basic overview of yoga postures. That's all fine and good. But there is so much more to this lifestyle that I wanted to take one day and put aside the doing of yoga and talk about what it is to be yoga. Now, I will link below a personal story about how this practice and embodying these principles, these limbs, completely turned my life around. So I'll link that below too. And you'll see how perhaps learning how to navigate these 8 limbs can better your life, and that will better the world. We come to the yoga mat for ourselves, right? This is a practice for self. But what happens is it becomes very selfless and it becomes a gift for everybody. So I'll tell you a little story. It'll probably be a video of how yoga changed my life and impacted my kids' life. So I'll link that below too. All right, see you tomorrow on the mat. Day 27 is coming at you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.